He's co-host of Gojo and Golic on DraftKings Network. He's Mike Golic, former NFL defensive lineman. Went it to Notre Dame is
Oh,
my bad.
seriously?
My bad. Okay, let's just get it over with. How painful was that watch for you with Notre Dame against Northern Illinois?
I was sitting right in the stands there watching that, and it was. And in week 2 of the college season, there were a number of big teams playing smaller teams that pulled out, close wins. So my thought the whole time there was just get the win, just get the win, just get the win. It's all that matters. They went up 14-13 in the second half. I thought, okay, maybe they'll put another field goal on them, another touchdown on them, and they'll win the game. And then Riley Leonard throws that interception that's returned 30 yards to the 50-yard line. A couple first downs later, they kick the field goal. And unfortunately, Notre Dame has done this before. 2 years ago to Marshall, certainly when my son Mike and Jake were here as well. So it was crushing. And I say this in all sincerity, congratulations to Northern Illinois. I mean, they outplayed Notre Dame. It wasn't fluky. It wasn't, oh my God, all these turnovers. They outplayed Notre Dame in South Bend the first time they ever went there. And kudos to them, tip of the cap to them. Even Marcus Freeman said, hey, maybe we were basically reading the clippings, but coaching staff and players, and they let one slip away. They let one slip away that they couldn't.
Yeah, but the good news is it's a 12-team playoff, and
Yep.
Your toughest game. I always say, their toughest game is USC, but then tell that to Notre Dame facing Northern Illinois. Hey, week in and week out, you just can't slip up, and they do this every year. It feels like there's that one slip-up game where you go, what is going on here?
The problem with they should be able to absorb another loss and possibly make the 12, but here's the situation. I think we'll only have 2 losses up to 12, maybe a third depending on the season, but basically 2 losses. And if Notre Dame wins out, they'll most likely be in. If they were to lose another one, you put that Northern Illinois loss up against somebody else with 2 losses, and it's probably not going to be as bad a loss as Notre Dame was to Northern Illinois. So that could have them with 2 losses on the outside looking in, possibly.
Talking to Mike Golic. He is the co-host of Gojo, Golic on DraftKings Network, and you can see it from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Do players care about the uniform when they do, like the Giants uniforms or the Steelers throwbacks or the Packers do players care when they're putting these things on?
I think most don't. I know I never did. I think we are in an era of more style where players have stylists to match their clothes to walk into the game, because they're on camera. So I do think players are more aware of style than they were years ago. But I think for the most part, once a game starts, they don't care. Linemen are just trying to get air in their lungs. Receivers are just trying to catch balls. DBs are trying to stop that. So I think once a game starts, no, they don't. For the most part, they don't care.
How closely are you watching the Deshaun Watson situation? That it's not about necessarily play on the field. Now you have this civil lawsuit that's been refiled, and could the Cleveland Browns get out from underneath this contract?
And actually, Dan, everything is about play on the field, right? When he signed with Cleveland, it was because he had a great year in Houston and then sat for games because he wanted to be traded, and he didn't have any criminal charges against him. They were all civil, and he settled with, I think, 23 of the 24 or 22 of the 23. And the Browns and Haslam signed him because he played great in Houston. That's why they signed him and gave him that then everybody thought a ridiculous contract that was just recently beaten by Dak Prescott. And now the Browns, they will look to try and get out of this contract because, again, of his quarterback play, it being bad this time, that they'll look for a clause they have the clause or for a reason to get out of this deal now. So while it's horrendous of what went on off the field, of which he was suspended 11 games, fined $5 million. And we all know what he went through, but it's on the field, Dan, that controlled all of this. And fans hated it. Fans hated the fact that the Browns signed him. But then after a while, you're just going to root for your colors. You're going to root for your jersey and try and root for a win. But now that he's playing bad, it's like, hey, can we get rid of him fast enough?
Which NFL fan base should feel the worst today?
Probably Cincinnati, though Zack Taylor in weeks 1 and 2 in his time in Houston is 1-10. So that's a problem. That's a problem for the player's standpoint of executing on the field and the coach's standpoint of not having them ready. But now, New England, we know, even with Bill Belichick and Gerard Mayo, who was a linebacker coach under Bill, they're going to have a tough defense. But for their offense, and I know they didn't have T. Higgins, and I don't think they tried to run the ball enough in what was a one-score game going into the fourth quarter. But they have perennially been bad the first 2 games, but to me, there was no excuse to put up the small amount of points that they did.
As a former player, the difference between being hurt and being injured is what?
It's a gray area, man. It's a gray area. It was a gray area to me because I was a 10th rounder who started maybe half my career and felt if I left the field, I may not get back on the field. So players are in different positions. For the most part, players are tough and will want to work through. Now, what has helped is I was pretty much the one to make the decision on whether I wanted to play, whether I wanted to take the needle, take the pill, of which I did many, many times to play. Now, you hear coaches say it's the doctor's decision. If the doctor says no, then it's no. We could talk our doctors into letting us play as long as it wasn't too detrimental or blown ACL or something like that. But we could talk the doctors into a shot or letting us play. Now you can't. Now it's a little more difficult to do that, and you'll kind of have your helmet taken away from you, which in all honesty is a good thing.
What is that like? How long does it take? You get the shot to then you feel the numbness or you don't feel anything?
Oh, I mean, there was a year, my year in Miami, I got the cartilage torn in my ribs between my ribs in game 1. I got shot up before the game and at halftime for most of the season. And listen, you could have hit me with a baseball bat and I wasn't going to feel a thing. And I've had that shot up, my shoulder shot up, my heel shot up. I mean, I've had a lot of things. And I'm not saying this to say I was this tough guy. I'm saying this as this is what was done when I played. I mean, there was a needle going into somebody all the time, and people can think about it, what they want to think about it. They said, well, didn't you think about what you were going to be like at 50? I said, I thought about playing on that Sunday, and that was it. Again, players are smarter today and take care of their bodies better today. Don't get me wrong. The shots, though, worked. They numbed the pain, but man, when it wore off, whether it was on the plane ride home or in a home game, when I went home and went to bed, you definitely felt it. That's when the pain pills kicked in. And that's when, it could lead to opioid problems for players. It wasn't pretty, Dan. It wasn't a pretty way to go about your business.
Quarterback play in week 1, we're seeing touchdown passes down considerably. Yep. Why?
Well, I think defenses are ahead of offenses. You're not playing your starters in preseason games as much, though I get it to a point because practicing with a team for the couple of days before you play them in preseason, I think is actually more important. But still, it's not completely full go. It's not tackling into the ground. You certainly can't hit the quarterback when you're practicing with another team. And in preseason, starters don't play a lot. See Cincinnati and why they slow start. 1-10 in under Zack Taylor in the first 2 weeks. And defenses are normally ahead of offenses. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think we'll eventually go to an 18-game schedule. We'll probably go down to 2 preseason games, so you'll get even less work by the starters. And the offense really needs to be in a timing rhythm. Defense needs to as well, but the offense with all the different parts needs to be in sync, I think, more than the defense. And they're just not getting the reps in preseason that they normally had gotten years ago.
The commissioners talked about the number of international games, and I was told by a source that they're going to sell that package. The international games probably going to be sold separately. The question is, how many countries do you think the NFL is going to try to play games in the near future?
As many, Dan, as many as they can. I mean, they are trying so hard to globalize the game. I don't believe we will ever have a team overseas like Jacksonville in London, or let alone a division overseas. I don't think that will ever happen. But I think, this isn't like baseball and hockey and even football, where you have a lot of overseas players playing in our sport. You don't have a lot of that in the NFL. So the only way the NFL gets the globalization of it is to go play on their turf, in their territory. So they'll try and play everywhere. And you got to be careful. I mean, you're talking 10-hour flights. You're talking the grass is horrible, but the players are highly paid players, don't get me wrong, but they're still not the owners who are grabbing this money from games overseas or out of the country, and kind of conditions be damned situation.
But can we give the fan too much football?
We can't give the international fan too much football because they don't see it that much.
But
obviously,
but us in the United States, can we give you too much? Can we be gluttonous that eventually you say, enough, I'm backing away from the buffet?
No, I don't think so. The only day there hasn't been an actual scheduled game after Christmas and Wednesday this year is a Tuesday. There's been a game on Tuesday because of a weather causing a game to, be postponed a couple of days. But that's good. Tuesday is going to be the only day an NFL game hasn't been scheduled. You cannot have enough. I mean, it is by far and away the most popular sport. I remember there were NBA analysts saying, "Oh, the football playing on Christmas isn't going to affect the NBA is still king on Christmas." It's a joke. Yeah. I mean, it's not even close, and it rules the roost. And I think college football, quite honestly, is second. But nothing will affect people wanting to watch the NFL. A big reason, you can gamble on it.
Do you remember one time when an offensive lineman pancaked you? Like it stood out of all the offensive linemen that you took on, where it was just like, damn, that was different.
Well, there were so many times, Dan. One time, I played against the late, great Bill Fralick, who I actually played against for years when he was at Pitt and I was at Notre Dame. And then we played against each other in the NFL. Man, he pancaked me. Well, I actually hurt my knee on the play and went on IR for 4 weeks. He just folded me backwards, and I kind of bent back as I was trying to fight it on my knee. That because I was injured was probably the one that I'll remember the most, but I'm not going to lie. It happened a couple of times.
What was your Super Bowl pick?
My Super Bowl pick this year is Detroit over Kansas City.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Once, and I took the Jets because I thought,
you did? Okay.
Yeah. I thought that Robert Saleh either gets fired after week 12 or he's the coach of the year. I think the defense is really good. I think Rodgers will ease into things. They got some playmakers there. And I thought, and maybe it's trying to get, clickbait. I could have taken Kansas City. I took Detroit as well, because Kansas City's right in front of you. And sometimes what's in front of you, we don't want to take that because nobody's going to notice if you say, I'm taking Kansas City to win it all.
Exactly right.
But I went kicking and screaming. I wanted to change my pick to Chiefs when I'm like, nope, I'll stick with the Jets. I'm going to have confidence in an angry Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I think Aaron, and I think the rust will kick off a little bit because we're used to seeing Aaron was kind of Pat Mahomes before Pat Mahomes. Maybe Pat Mahomes is a little more magician-like, but Aaron on the run, rolling right, rolling left, throwing, dropping dimes was incredible. In this first game, he didn't do that much. He just got rid of the ball. He was almost truly like a pocket quarterback when he can be pretty dangerous outside the pocket. And I think he'll get to that. And I agree, if they're going to go somewhere, they're going to be led by their defense. That's why it was a little disheartening to get run on the way that defense got run on, because they're breaking in a new O-lineman, and you got Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall as your two main weapons. But I get you wanting to go out on a limb because our mutual friend Stu Gatz picked the Jets and Chicago in the Super Bowl. So he really went out on a limb.
Great to talk to you. My best to the family. Thanks for joining us.
You got it, Dan.
That's Mike Golic, co-host of Gojo and Golic on DraftKings Network, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And, had to hit him with the Notre Dame question at some point. Let's just get the Band-Aid off there.
Get it out of the way.
How about we take a break? Last call for phone calls, what we learned, what's in store tomorrow, this day in sports history. All of that right after this.